He walked into Melbourne carrying doubt. He walked out with history rewritten. At 22 years old, Carlos Alcaraz didn't just win the Australian Open. He closed the argument about who tennis belongs to next. Tennis has lived under one shadow for 20 years. Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. Three names that swallowed eras, records, and belief. Every next great player arrived with hype and left with excuses. Carlos Alcaraz was supposed to be different, but heading into 2026, even he looked vulnerable. In December 2025, Alcaraz made the most destabilizing decision of his young career. He split from Juan Carlos Ferrero, the coach who shaped him from prodigy into world number one. No safety net, no familiar voice, no guarantee the magic would survive the separation. And then came Melbourne. The Australian Open, Novak Djokovic's fortress, a place where legends bend or break. This final wasn't about a trophy. It was about control of the future. Because this story isn't just about how Carlos Alcaraz won the 2026 Australian Open. It's about why this victory changed how tennis history will be written, and why, from this night forward, every comparison becomes unavoidable. Carlos Alcaraz did not come from privilege. He grew up in El Palmar, Murcia, on dusty Spanish courts where tennis was work, not glamour. His father ran a small tennis academy. Balls were reused. Wins were earned, not assumed. Even as a child, coaches noticed something unsettling. He didn't panic. He didn't rush. He learned fast and remembered everything. By his teens, he was labeled a phenomenon. By 19, a Grand Slam champion. By 21, already chased by history. But 2026 arrived with noise. Questions followed him into Melbourne. Was Alcaraz still the same without Ferrero? Could he manage pressure alone? Was Djokovic still the immovable wall? Through the tournament, Alcaraz answered, quietly. He dismantled early rounds with patience, outlasted grinders, outpowered aggressors. And in the semifinals, he brushed aside Alexander Zverev with controlled brutality. Heavy forehands, disguised drop shots, ruthless transitions at net. Then came the final. Carlos Alcaraz versus Novak Djokovic. Youth versus legacy. Creation versus preservation. The 2026 Australian Open Final. This is the moment where everything, belief, legacy, identity, collided on Melbourne Park's center court. Opening games, setting the tone. The match opened like a heavyweight fight. No rush, no chaos. Just two champions circling, pacing, probing, waiting for the first crack. Djokovic, the immovable force, struck first. Returns deep, angles precise, pressure immediate. Alcaraz didn't flinch, but he didn't retreat either. He met Djokovic's depth with intent, stepping in, redirecting pace. The inside-out forehand became his early signature, a weapon that dragged Novak wide, forcing him into unfamiliar territory. The scoreboard barely moved. No blowouts, no early collapse, just tension. Psychological warfare, because both players knew the truth. One break could tilt the entire final. And this final was historic in more ways than one. Across the net stood Novak Djokovic, 16 years older than Carlos Alcaraz. That gap wasn't trivia. It was history. In the Open era, only once before had a men's Grand Slam final spanned a wider divide. 1974, when Jimmy Connors and Ken Rosewall, separated by 17 years, clashed at Wimbledon and the US Open. Now, more than 50 years later, Alcaraz and Djokovic were writing the second largest age gap ever seen in a major final. This wasn't just a contest of tactics or power. It was a collision of generations, youth against experience, momentum against memory. And soon, the scoreboard would tell the sport which direction it was turning. Momentum shift. After losing the first set, something snapped. On Djokovic's serve, Alcaraz began dictating. Sharper angles, fearless drop shots, and a backhand that refused to sit still. Point by point, the crowd felt it. Djokovic started to hesitate. A crucial rally, 18 shots, blistering pace, ended with Alcaraz forcing a backhand slice winner. Break point. And he seized it. That single break was more than a scoreboard swing. It was belief. Key tactical evolution, Alcaraz's strategy. What made this final truly cinematic wasn't just winners. It was how he constructed points. 1. Attack the second serve. Alcaraz didn't wait for perfect balls. He pressured every opportunity Djokovic offered. 2. Push Djokovic wider than usual. Instead of cross-court to cross-court rallies, Alcaraz reset with flat, linear balls that dragged Novak off balance. 3. Change rhythm without warning. Drop shot to deep forehand, slice to explosive inside out. It was chaos with purpose, like a symphony that only Alcaraz could conduct. The second set finished with Alcaraz winning at 6-2, a lead that looked small on paper, but massive in emotional weight. Third set. Momentum becomes pressure. Djokovic did not wilt. He shifted gears. He sharpened his focus. He began taking the ball even earlier, daring Alcaraz to push him further. But now, the pressure wasn't just about winning points. It was about containing Alcaraz's swagger. At 2-all, Djokovic held serve, but only with a hawk-like intensity and a few borderline winners. Ungrounded tension began to rise. And then came another turning point. The longest rally of the set, 25 shots. Baseline thuds, scrambles, lunges, neither giving ground. Finally, Alcaraz leaned forward and punched a cross-court forehand winner past Djokovic. Nothing flashy, just unrelenting pressure. Breakpoint. And again. Alcaraz delivered. He took control of the third set and clinched it 6-3. Fourth set, the clash of wills. Now the match became something bigger than sport. It was a test of soul. Djokovic dug deep, raising his level, crushing serves, scrambling for every short ball. At 1-all, Djokovic unleashed a blistering forehand winner, a shot that earned spontaneous gasps from the crowd. But something had changed. Alcaraz wasn't rattled. Instead of tightening, he expanded. More first serves in, more net decisions, more calculated risk. He approached the net with fearless timing. Volley into drop shot into explosive forehand. And the scoreboard moved. 4-2. Djokovic sensed urgency. He elevated the intensity to almost surgical precision. But tennis is not just artillery. It's timing, balance, instinct. And in that moment, Alcaraz had all three. Another long, grinding rally. Djokovic pushes. Alcaraz pushes harder. Closing sequence. The weight of the moment. On championship point, on Novak's serve, Alcaraz didn't flinch. No theatrics, no hesitation. A deep forehand return on serve that caused Novak to hit an unforced error. Match over. Carlos Alcaraz 2-6, 6-2, 6-3, 7-5. Statistical context. The numbers that tell the story. This was no lucky run. Alcaraz hit more winners than Djokovic. He broke serve twice, a rarity in Djokovic's slam finals. He returned with aggression, not defense, even on big points. This wasn't survival. This was insistence. Emotional undercurrent, what the crowd felt. Melbourne Park erupted, not just for a title, but for a declaration. One that said, the next era isn't coming, it's already here. Djokovic, still great, still respectful, approached the net and said to Alcaraz's ear, "You deserved it." And with that, Novak didn't just congratulate him, he passed the torch. This victory wasn't just about skill. It was about adaptability. Carlos Alcaraz won the most psychologically demanding Grand Slam immediately after leaving the coach who defined him. That's not coincidence. That's evolution. He proved something rare, that greatness doesn't cling to comfort. It grows beyond it. Alcaraz plays with the physicality of Nadal, the creativity of Federer, and the elasticity of Djokovic, but he doesn't copy them. He compresses them into something new. And that's the uncomfortable truth tennis now faces. At 22, Alcaraz already owns moments legends took decades to reach. Not because he rushed history, but because he understood it. Every era has a match that redraws the map. For Federer, it was Wimbledon. For Nadal, Paris. For Djokovic, Melbourne. For Carlos Alcaraz, it was the night uncertainty became inevitability. This wasn't a coronation. It was a declaration. And the most dangerous part? He's just getting started. If this moment mattered to you, if you want the stories behind tennis history, not just the scores, subscribe for cinematic breakdowns of the matches that change everything. And click here to watch the next tennis documentary, because the future of tennis didn't arrive quietly. It arrived in Melbourne, and it arrived ready.